Hi folks, Hasan Piker is one of Twitch's most influential streamers, consistently ranked at the top of the platform for the better part of the last decade. For Gen Z though, he has been the face of leftism, shaping how millions of young people in America and the world view everything from the Russian invasion of Ukraine to the Palestinian terror attacks of October 7th and the Israeli response. And yet, time and time again, Hasan has proved himself to be an unreliable narrator. He's gleefully spread false information if it helped prop up his pro-terror and anti-American agenda. He is your basic, typical champagne socialist archetype, sipping luxury while calling for the destruction of the system that makes him rich. If hypocrisy were a Twitch category, he'd be number one in that too. Now, Hasan represents a strain of leftism that has long tied Marxism to Islamic extremism, and this isn't new. In the 1970s, Iran Shah communists helped topple the Shah, only to be executed by the Islamic theocracy they helped install. Similar ideological marriages played out across North Africa, in Egypt, and elsewhere, and today, the same cycle is repeating itself in parts of Europe, and yes, even in America. Now, what makes Hasan particularly dangerous is that he presents himself as a westernized, relatable figure while slowly driving a wedge between young people and their American identity. He has openly stood against America itself, at one point even declaring that America deserved 9/11. He has also threatened violence against Republican elected officials, and he bears no qualms. He postures as a revolutionary while cashing Amazon-sized checks. He's a kind of workers' hero who never punches a clock but has no problem punching down at his own country. This contradiction defines him. Though American by passport, Hasan grew up outside the United States and embodies a class of people who come here seeking opportunity only to import their old grievances. The hostility that was once aimed at Israel, Judaism, and Christianity is now repackaged and redirected at America itself, and especially American Christians. They slap a fresh coat of Marxism paint on it, call our republic colonialist or oppressive, and pretend they're speaking from some lofty moral high ground. In reality, it's just recycled sectarian hatred with a Western twist. Concocted nonsense meant to make them look like revolutionaries while they cash in. It's the ultimate irony, railing against the oppressive American system while living lives of wealth and freedom they could never have achieved back home. That's not fighting oppression. That's biting the hand that upgraded you from crumbs to literal caviar. Needless to say, Hasan's rhetoric is poisonous Marxism wrapped in slick branding, enriching himself while dividing our country. His goal, and that of those like him, is simple: sow enough discord to upend our political order, then install their own allies at the top. And let me make one thing clear: this isn't just edgy banter. He has a long documented record of openly calling for violence against America and our leaders. Clips dating back 6 or 7 years show him fantasizing about violent acts against Republican officials and against America itself. Drew Pavlow on X has cataloged nearly 70 separate calls to violence from Hasan in just the past few years. Yet, Hasan faces virtually no consequences from the tech giants who host him. He streams this garbage live on Twitch, owned by Amazon, and his VODs get re-uploaded on YouTube by the so-called Hasanabi Industrial Complex, fan channels that help him game the algorithm. If a conservative even whispered 1/10 of what Hasan says, the ban hammer would fall faster than you can say terms of service. But Hasan, he's protected, and we'll get to why later. Now, some will protest saying, well, we live in different times, things aren't that bad anymore. Wrong. The rules are still enforced, just selectively. Conservatives don't get outright bans these days. We just get shadow bans. Yours truly knows this firsthand. But tonight, this isn't about me. So without further ado, let's roll this 2-minute compilation, just one of many, trust me, you can find them all over X, showing Hasan in his own words, unfiltered, unapologetic, and repeatedly calling for violence against his political opponents. So watch closely, folks. Then we'll break it down on the other side.
Gunshots at the Trump rally? Shut the fuck up. No.
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it. I'm saying it. We fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit.
Threatened to kill Senator Tom Cotton.
Every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids. The violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott, okay?
The moment
is clear. You got to sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You got to get one of those like Haz al Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive, you know?
874 Bellevue Drive, and I'm gonna kill you with my AR-15. Like, that's the type of messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning. So I think that people are a lot more radical now. This is an unprecedented time to really get others on board. Someone has to do it. See, when I say that, everyone knows exactly what I mean. I think that shows that there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and untapped revolutionary potential, as a matter of fact.
Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods.
My God, dude. Re-education camp seems good.
I'm
really.
sick and tired of it. Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be fucking showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the fuck is this shit, man? Slice them up.
His fears about political
I think this is just a one dude who is genuine in his actions and maybe, you know, a little bit brain broken. Regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi.
Wow.
And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as
Jesus.
As Felix was posting, if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this. Him and Drew are the same. Tim Pool and Destiny are the same. If there was obviously a real karmic justice out there or any sort of real lawfare out there, real rule of law out there, they would be treated in the exact same way that journalists were treated for defending the Holocaust.
And that specific compilation keeps going for another 18 minutes, folks. 60 more calls to violence after what we just saw. All recent, by the way. Sure, there are a few older ones that get sprinkled in, but the pattern is undeniable. For years, hardly anyone was paying close attention to just how radical Hasan's rhetoric had become. A lot of it got lost in the shuffle. Honestly, the pandemic probably gave him cover. While the rest of the country was distracted or stuck at home, his extremism slid under the radar. But now that normal life has resumed, the record is sitting there in plain sight. And what's clear is that he hasn't slowed down. He's ramped it up. He makes these calls to violence proudly, without apology, without ever addressing them, without ever attempting to justify them. Why? Well, because in his mind, he doesn't need to. Like so many on his side, he genuinely believes he's morally justified in calling for the murder or assassination of anyone who disagrees with him, no matter how moderate or mainstream they may be. Take Charlie Kirk, for example, about as middle-of-the-road, vanilla conservative as you can get. Hasan has gone after him. Or someone on the opposite end like Nick Fuentes. Same story. It doesn't matter to Hasan. If you're not with him, you're a target. That's the point. Hasan isn't interested in debate and persuasion and discourse. He's laundering the same tired Marxist rhetoric through the glossy lens of Twitch entertainment. And none of it is new. None of it is profound. None of it is revolutionary. It's designed to inspire hatred, division, and yes, violence. You don't graphically describe gutting your political opponents like pigs and watching their intestines spill out unless you're hoping somebody unstable enough will hear it and take action on your behalf. And let's be clear, this isn't just entertainment. Hasan has a very specific goal, and it's the same goal you see from Democrats who casually escalate their rhetoric. You got the Elon Omars of the world, the Rashida Tlaibs, the AOCs, the Kamala Harrises. The routine is always the same. Label a Republican a fascist, crank up the temperature, and see what happens. They know exactly what the possible endpoint of that kind of language is, and yet they keep pushing it. Why? Well, because they want one of two outcomes. Either the threats metastasize into actual violence, which you'll never admit out loud, but they strategically benefit from, or at the very least, they intimidate the other side into silence. If you can't win on ideas, you try to make people too scared to speak. That's the game for them. And Hasan is just one piece on this chessboard where he plays a very specific role. He's Western enough, he's polished enough to look and sound like an ordinary American while nudging people into an ideological pipeline of extremism. And look, I hesitate to use that expression, but at this point, leftist activism has merged with leftist violence. There's no daylight between the two. Blocking roads, attacking ICE facilities, assassinating conservatives. These aren't tactics meant to raise awareness. They're tactics meant to spark violence, to force conflict, and to make society ungovernable. But here's a greater irony. The same crowd that screeches about American imperialism abroad and condemns politicians for sending the poor to fight their wars is doing the exact same thing with their base. Hasan isn't strapping a vest to blow himself up anytime soon. He isn't building any sort of weapons to go attack Tom Cotton. He isn't charging into the streets to fight ICE agents. He's sitting comfortably in his multi-million-dollar home, raking in subs and donos, while planting the seeds of violence in an audience full of people who feel alienated, purposeless, and shut out of the system. He knows exactly what he's doing. He'll never get his own hands dirty, but he's perfectly fine nudging some unstable follower to do it for him. They're the sacrificial lambs. He keeps the lifestyle while they pay the price. And that's the real sickness here, folks. A lot of his audience is young, disillusioned, and searching for meaning. They don't feel like they belong in capitalism, in this economy, in modern life because they're going through hard times. Hasan offers them an outlet, a fantasy that if they lash out, if they embrace violence, they can tip the scales in their favor. It's false hope, dressed up as revolutionary courage. But the only person it truly benefits is Hasan and his side. Now, needless to say that Hasan has been confronted for his rhetoric, and this is what he had to say.
I want to ask you about your own rhetoric. I noticed that Elon Musk has been posting about you.
Yes.
And I don't know the context of these particular statements, but here's a quote from you about landlords who don't want to rent out their properties. You said, kill them, murder them, let the streets soak in their red capitalist blood. Doesn't that make you part of the problem with violent discourse?
This was in a conversation that I was having with a landlord friend of mine, and it's of course hyperbolic, and it's not meant to be sincere. This is not sincere advocacy. It's not a real policy that I would ever advocate for, and that's precisely the reason why when Republicans were desperately looking for any sort of incisive language that they could present, they went back to a very obvious instance of LARPing, an insincere statement that is obviously hyperbolic from, I believe, 2018.
My question stands nonetheless. Doesn't that kind of language contribute to the atmosphere of violent, even lethal violence in the United States?
I don't believe that my insincere statements that don't reflect on any of my beliefs whatsoever in 2019 has led to any sort of real world violence whatsoever.
Not only is it absolutely disingenuous for Hasan to claim that his comments were just a joke or hyperbole, but we all know the double standard at play here. If the roles were reversed, if a conservative Twitch streamer or pundit said exactly what Hasan said, they would be deplatformed instantly and branded a threat to democracy. Hasan himself would be leading the chorus, denouncing that person as dangerous. But because it's Hasan, because it's someone who fits neatly inside the left's ideological bubble, he gets the benefit of the doubt. He gets to dismiss it as LARPing or, it's being insincere. But let's be honest for a second here, folks. His offense is just pure misdirection. He tries to flip the burden onto the journalist, as if to say, hey, why don't you go find me a case where someone literally committed violence because of my rhetoric? And that's a cheap trick. The point isn't whether there's a direct line from Hasan Piker's Twitch stream to a crime scene. The point is that this kind of rhetoric raises the temperature. It normalizes the language of violence, and it feeds an atmosphere where unstable people feel like they have to act out in order to exact fairness. If wars didn't matter, we wouldn't see shooters leaving manifestos echoing Democrat talking points. We wouldn't see the transgender shooters' writings from the Catholic school dripping with the same themes you hear on the left every day. And we wouldn't see the man who killed Charlie Kirk literally scrawling Democrat rhetoric onto his bullets. So no, Hasan doesn't get to shrug this off. You can't say murder them, soak the streets in their capitalist blood, and then claim it was just a throwaway joke. That kind of rhetoric has consequences whether or not you meant it literally. And if it was truly insincere, that raises an even bigger problem. What does it say about Hasan if the most extreme things he says are just performative? If the threats of violence are just content for clicks, are we supposed to believe his entire shtick is nothing but content farming? And if so, what does that say about his credibility, about his supposed political convictions? I mean, just think about it for a second, folks. Hasan himself has admitted previously on Piers Morgan that he's a propagandist. So when he turns around and says, I was just being hyperbolic. We're left asking, is everything he says just for political theater? Is there any sincerity behind his commentary at all? Or is he just playing the role of an agent of chaos, upending discourse, making politics more violent, more divisive, just to build his brand and his bank account? Because if it's truly the latter, wow. Because here's the truth, folks. Hasan isn't just some lone wolf. He's part of a broader ecosystem of leftist influencers who all push the rhetoric hotter and hotter. They raise the temperature on purpose because they all know it either frightens conservatives into silence or it produces the kind of violent outbursts that benefit them politically. The left thrives on perpetual crisis. It's part of the Marxist-Leninist cycle. It gives them the justification to expand government power, to erode your freedoms, to accuse their opponents of being an existential threat. Hasan is just a pop culture face of that movement, slick, westernized, and now accessible for Gen Z. And what makes this profoundly evil is that tech companies actually enable this. Twitch isn't going to punish Hasan. We all know this because CEO Dan Clancy literally called Hasan one of his favorite streamers, praising how confident Hasan is with what he says. Confident in calling for murder, apparently, is now a virtue. Hasan's only real punishment came after public outcry forced Twitch's hand. And that's exactly the problem here, folks. These platforms aren't neutral referees. They're ideologically captured from within. YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, they build ecosystems where the left thrives and conservatives are throttled. It's not that there aren't good right-wing or Christian creators. There are plenty, and many of them succeeded on platforms like Facebook or Rumble, but YouTube and TikTok stacked the deck against them. They quietly suppress, they shadow ban, they demonetize. I mean, I see it for myself. My own analytics show suppression. And I think we can all agree that social media platforms have learned in the last few years to not just ban outright. That got them too much heat in the last few years. So now it's just shadow bans and quiet throttling. And notice who gets hit the hardest. Not the massive names like Crowder or Tim Pool. They can't silence them because it would be obvious. Instead, it's the mid-level and rising conservative voices that get crushed before they can grow, while the left just metastasizes freely. It's a deliberate ecosystem play. Protect a few big conservatives as proof of balance, but make sure the bench never develops. And look who's running these platforms, by the way. Let's just take a look and think about it. I've met these YouTube engineers. I've walked the halls of Google in New York. The majority aren't even Americans. They don't share American values. They don't want Americanism to succeed. Their sympathies lie with the same far left worldview that Hasan Piker embodies. That's why platforms like Rumble and now X had to be created, because without them, the American voice, the Christian voice, the pro-capitalist voice would be erased from the digital public square. And that's a bigger story here, folks. This whole thing with Hasan isn't just about one streamer mouthing off. It reveals the cultural moment we're currently living in, a moment where violent language is normalized if it comes from the left, a moment where platforms prop up leftist chaos agents while suppressing conservative voices that oppose it and offer a different point of view, a moment where American and Christian values are treated like threats to democracy rather than the foundation of it. But here's what they can't erase. America was built on Christian principles. The Declaration of Independence invokes God from the very beginning. Nearly every one of the founding fathers was a Christian, and even the few who consider themselves deists recognize the divine order. The Constitution itself enshrines the idea that our rights come from God, not from government, and that the government's only role is to protect those rights. The truth doesn't vanish because a Twitch streamer mocks it. That foundation doesn't crumble because one of these platform CEOs prefers leftist creators. No matter how much Hasan Piker sneers, no matter how shamelessly he plays the propagandist, no matter how hard tech elites work to elevate voices like his and suppress ours, the truth stands. America is not built on the sand of Marxist ideology. It is built on the rock of God-given freedom. And while these people may hate that fact, while they may dream of undoing this country from within, they will fail. Because this nation was founded under God. And as long as we stay on his side, America will endure long after the Hasan Pikers, the Twitches of the world are forgotten and gone. And they will. Now, for context, that was Hasan Piker singing Bella Ciao, the same anthem that alarmingly showed up inscribed on a bullet connected to the attack on Charlie Kirk. And he did it in front of 40,000 kids on Twitch. There's no way to paper over what this means, folks. These people are vile. I don't know any other way to describe it. They want you dead, and they will dance on your grave. There is something deeply demonic and profoundly inhuman about celebrating that imagery while claiming any sort of moral victory or superiority. It's grotesque hypocrisy. And the left loves to brand itself as a party of empathy and progress, but moments like this expose the rot, a cultish eagerness for symbolic violence packaged as resistance. Call it what it is. It's a death cult that will not survive its own nihilism. So it's never been more evident that we're looking at an influencer economy that fuses identity with grievance, thriving on platforms whose biased enforcement allows dehumanizing language to spread and audiences to radicalize. That's the real danger here. And it's one our culture and the tech gatekeepers keep refusing to confront. But the harder question is what it says about us, that a generation now mistakes shock value posturing for culture and online mobs for actual political movements. What does it mean when content carries more weight than truth? When platforms reward division because unity doesn't trend? And how long can a nation built on shared ideals survive when its loudest cultural figures profit from tearing at the very seams that hold us together? These aren't questions that we can just dodge anymore, folks, because they speak not only to the sickness of one man's rhetoric, but to the deeper corrosion of a civic culture that once knew better. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.